Welcome to an audiobook entitled Parish Management and Operations. The Buck Stops Here. Narrated by Catholic author Michael Brinda. We hope you enjoy the segment and find it useful in your ministerial work.
Chapter 30. Statement of PMO Culture. How can the principle of PMO culture be informatively and succinctly stated? First and foremost, as previously mentioned, organizational culture must be animated by and imbued with certain performance sentiments established within your public parish mission statement. Without such brief yet profound enhanced language within your parish mission statement, you cannot create or support a correct statement of culture. The details of why this is so will be fully explained in the chapters on hiring and firing. Thus, a parish mission statement that neglects to publicly profess the duty of the parish, to also address serving its current and lapsed parishioners through a superior commitment to PMO, cannot lend itself to the creation or support of the proper superior service, results-oriented, written statement on PMO culture that follows. The following are sample statements of PMO culture derived from mandatory, additional, enhanced PMO support language placed within your parish mission statement. The essential objective of each sample statement below remains the same: to clearly and succinctly state the PMO culture. However, the specific language used to achieve this common objective can vary to suit the personal temperament of the PMO administrator. It is in this regard you will note significant differences in tone, but not objective, in the following 5 sample statements of culture. Choose the statement you are most comfortable applying, or create your own. But no matter what exact language you choose, you need a written statement of culture. Statement of culture sample number 1. At insert your parish name here, we strive to make the correct PMO decision or execute perfectly every time. Superior performance is our only standard, and from this standard we measure our own performance and the performance of all those who report to us, whether employees, volunteers, contractors, or vendors. We further acknowledge that making the correct decision is absolutely irrelevant if we cannot or do not perfectly execute upon every decision ourselves, or convey immediately and clearly our instructions to those who report to us, so that they, in turn, execute perfectly. This attitude cascades through every person in the entire PMO organization, because if it does not, the culture has not reached everywhere and everyone it must. This is known as a polluted culture, a broken culture, and we cannot tolerate a polluted and broken culture because we would be failing to fully serve those whom it is our duty to serve. Training commensurate with any assigned task will always be provided, but then it is our duty as PMO administrators to further ensure those who report to us not only do what they have been taught and instructed to do, but they do so in the most correct way and by the date of completion that is never dictated but always mutually agreed upon in advance, to be done in the manner taught and prescribed. Mediocre performance by anyone cannot be accepted or overlooked in any way. Mediocrity will be immediately addressed, always face-to-face as the first communication preference, by phone as the second option, always and whenever possible. It is not our way to ever hide and communicate behind the facade of a digital screen and keyboard, except as a last resort. And no matter the method of communication used, we always immediately, whether by further trading, remedial corrective instruction, or termination of employment, personally address the issue at hand or delegate to the person who is responsible and monitor their handling of the task through to full and proper completion. Cultural indoctrination does not start at the bottom of the org chart and permeate up through the organization. Cultural indoctrination starts at the top of the org chart and permeates its way downward throughout the organization. But you will achieve none of this culture if you do not formally teach these tenets to each current and employee, PMO employee and volunteer, A through Z, one employee at a time. Commit to begin teaching this culture as a matter of policy and correct interviewing processes to every new hire during the interview process, and simultaneously model the culture yourself to everyone in PMO every day without fail. The culture creator, which is to say you, further fosters an open-door policy whereby all employees or volunteers from top to bottom not only are most welcome to speak their mind, offer suggestions, criticize, etc., but further know this is true because they have been specifically taught that it is their duty to do so. This is not to say management accepts every suggestion or recommendation, but all employees know their input is most welcome, and the only repercussions from commenting are none. At the least, a gracious thank you will be given, and perhaps a bonus of some sort. All employees know this because thanks are always given, and bonuses are indeed witnessed as paid as warranted in relation to the value of the input received. We will in part know employee morale is high as built through this culture by observing current employees sending their relatives and friends to us to apply for work wherever we create this culture. Those who do not accept this culture should not be hired in the first place, but if for some reason they are hired, or already employed by their own free will actions and choices, choose not to fit in with our culture, they must be dismissed for their own good, the good of the organization, and most importantly, for the good of those we are charged with serving. Everything must always be done in love and charity, but there is no love or charity found in enshrining and perpetuating mediocrity. That is the end of the statement of culture, sample number 1. We begin here, statement of culture, sample number 2. At, insert your parish name here, we practice stewardship, the grateful response of a Christian disciple who recognizes and receives God's gifts and shares these gifts in love of God and neighbor. We acknowledge Christ calls us to perfection. We cannot be half grateful, nor can we partially receive his gifts. We must always strive to respond to God and share our gifts to the best of our abilities. We must be the good stewards who receive the Master's gifts and build them up. We cannot be bad stewards, lest we be cast into the darkness, where the wailing and gnashing of teeth await us. The most visible aspect of our practice of stewardship in PMO is our service to God's people. God placed his church on this earth to serve all the needs of all his people. We must all be good stewards of the gifts that God has given us. Therefore, we must always strive for perfection in our service of God's people. Christ is the example and model of perfection in how we are to serve God's people. He loved his disciples and valued them more than himself. He communicated with them openly and honestly. He taught them what they needed to know. He corrected and even rebuked them when necessary. He challenged them to go far beyond what they ever thought was possible. If we are incapable of providing the service God requires us for His people, we must take an honest, hard, deep look at ourselves. When we discover the cause of our inability, we must take any and all necessary actions to address the problem. We must remember that even though Christ exalted the smallest mustard seed of faith, He also condemned the fig tree that bore no fruit. Be the mustard seed. Don't be the fig tree. That is the end of sample statement of culture number 2. Statement of culture example number 3. At insert parish name here. Excellence is the only measure of success. We strive to do our best and put every effort in our work serving and reaching people. We work as a family, empowering one another. One should be responsible for his or her actions. Proper judgment is gained through training and wide understanding of the work. Thus, training shall be provided. Merits are gained through hard work. Consequences are brought by wrong judgment. As a family, we are stronger together, and together we will make this parish great. Respect begets respect. Know your superior. Speak your ideas and influence each other. Share your talent. Seek and you will find. Ignorance is not permitted. It is a pest that destroys the system. Knock and the door shall be open. Be open to criticisms and have room for improvements. When you hear their voices, harden not your heart. Be ready to apply what you have gained from training and criticism. Do not work on your own ways. And when things fail, justice shall always be served. Mercy shall follow. Together in our community, we vow our allegiance to the cross. Excellence is our goal. God is our guide. The people are our inspiration. We are the culture. This is our culture. In faith, hope, and love, may our service prevail. That is the end of the statement of culture, example number 3. Statement of culture, example number 4. At insert your parish name here. We are committed to provide everyone with the opportunity to encounter and gain a profound sense of the sacred. We ultimately rely on the Holy Spirit for this to occur. However, in all parish ministries, we strive to unobstruct the Holy Spirit by making correct decisions and executing them perfectly. We hold ourselves to this standard of superior performance as well as everyone involved in this organization. As a parish family, everyone, no matter what their position, is invited in charity to share their suggestions, voice their opinions, and make necessary criticisms. Everyone, both current staff and the newly hired, will receive the proper training to correctly fulfill their duties as described in their written job descriptions. Evaluations will be periodically made to assess job performance. Anyone not meeting the standard of superior performance will meet with their direct supervisor to discuss how they may better serve God and the parish community for the good of their own souls and the souls of all affected by the service they may be more suited to provide. If agreement cannot be made, the pastor is then to determine what further course of action to take. This may include dismissal of a paid employee or asking a volunteer to do another task at the risk of offending them and possibly seeing them leave the parish of their own volition. This is the end of example of culture statement number 4. Statement of culture example number 5. At insert your parish name here. We strive for superior performance in all facets of our mission. Superior is the measure of our performance, whether as employees, volunteers, contractors, or vendors. Fully acknowledging that no one is perfect, we respond to Christ's call to be perfect as our Heavenly Father is perfect by always doing our best. This attitude, first and foremost, must be held by the pastor who leads the parish, but always must flow to everyone in PMO. It is everyone's responsibility to hold each other to this standard while remaining charitable and understanding, for one must remove the beam from one's own eye before removing the splinter from his brother's. With the goal and standard of our performance being perfection, mediocrity is not sufficient. Mediocrity will not be accepted as our standard. Not only will tasks be completed correctly and on time as mutually agreed upon prior, but also all tasks will be done in a superior manner, going above and beyond the basic requirements. If mediocrity does occur, management will address it in a timely manner, ideally face-to-face. While updates and normal communication may be done over the phone or via digital communications, correction ought to be, if possible, done in person and never as a degradation of the person's value, but always as a means to ensure that mediocrity does not persist. This can be accomplished by retraining, adjusting responsibilities, reprimanding, or ultimately dismissal. Ideally, the direct superior has this duty. The pastor promotes an open door policy so that the Spirit may move through all. While not all suggestions presented will be enacted, they will always be taken under advisement. The minimum response to employee or parishioner input will always at least be sincere gratitude and earnest consideration with potential for the payment of bonuses. Those unwilling to take on this culture model should not be hired. If for some reason a current employee or volunteer willfully rejects this culture, they must be dismissed for their own sake and for the sake of the parish, but always in charity. To paraphrase Pope Emeritus Benedict, Caritas in verite, truth without charity can be cruel, and charity without truth becomes sentimentality and not truly loving. End of Statement of Culture number 5. Whichever statement of culture you choose, actually living the words daily is vital to achieving what the words actually represent. We must also concede that using ever so common culture-building boilerplate language such as "we are committed to excellence" or "we provide world-class service" can be demonstrated in an almost infinite number of ways as to be merely window dressing and exposed for what it is: hollow milquetoast declarations of no real consequence masquerading as statements of some consequence. Such boilerplate language is just that, boilerplate. The DNA intrinsic to the correct culture is defined in the total statement of culture in the samples and examples provided above. Therefore, if you are not going to embrace the above culture, the reasons do not matter. Just know you can have the absolute best of everything in your PMO, but if your culture is just the slightest bit off, you will never become what you should be, both personally and organizationally. Remember, this PMO organizational greatness we strive for is not about control, ego, power, prestige, recognition, or anything like this. It is only about serving God by serving our parishioners, both current and lapsed, in the most superior way possible. The correct PMO culture is always asking, is there any more we can do for those we are called to serve? We either exist to serve the parishioner in a superior manner or not. Now, in the next chapter, let's look at an or not example.
Chapter 31.
Experience a broken culture. We will now segue into a representative example of broken culture so that you may feel the texture of living in and under the effects of a broken culture, and also consider the consequences of accepting the status quo of mediocrity, or worse, such a broken culture creates. There is so much useful material here in the following article, you would be hard-pressed to find a more costly example. This is an excerpt. The headline is, Volkswagen rocked by emissions scandal as prosecutors come calling. The subheadline, VW cheated 11 million times. The article states, Volkswagen has now admitted that it intentionally installed software programmed to switch engines to a cleaner mode during official emissions testing. The software then switches off again, enabling cars to drive more powerfully on the road while emitting as much as 40 times the legal pollution limit. The illegal software was made and installed in vehicles with a 2.0-liter diesel engine during model years 2009 through 2015, according to the EPA. They include the Audi A3, VW Jetta, Beetle, Golf, and Passat models. VW finally acknowledged installing the devices only after the California Air Resources Board and the EPA insisted on a better explanation than approving its 2016 diesel models. We met with VW on several occasions, and they continued to dispute our data, so we'd return to the lab. Over time, VW had no other explanations left, and it was our lab staff who actually got VW to admit that there was, in fact, a defeat device, according to CARB spokesman John Smith. The name has been changed. End of story. So, let's recap here. The CARB folks continuously went back to their lab to check their data. Wow, there's an effective response to this major discrepancy, said no one ever. If the car passes your official tests but pollutes on the road, you know the car is somehow rigged, and there's only one way you can clandestinely rig today's software-controlled cars, through software cheats. Buying the VW response for years is akin to believing all was well in the entire former USSR because on your pre-planned VIP driving route from the airport to the one and only decent hotel in the entire country, everything you saw looked clean and modern, just the way the Potemkin village planners wanted you to see their fine dump of a broken national infrastructure. Who falls for that trick? What thinking person accepts such illusions? Obviously CARB did, among others. But why? Are you telling me employed in the entire state or federal government we don't have a single software engineer who can read a software code dump? And we don't employ the lawyer wherewithal to subpoena this suspected rigged programming code? There are teenage hackers living on pizza and sodas in a dimly lit basement who can read a programming code dump, but the government has no one qualified to do so? The failure to expose this cheating had nothing to do with a lack of available talent and everything to do with poor management of the talent and resources available. In other words, for better or worse, working in a broken culture animates the behavior of thinking of all employees. Simply perform a programming code dump and read the code. That's it. Read the code. Software code doesn't lie. Code would reveal, oh, Mr. or Ms. VW software engineer, could you please explain this subroutine in your code that detects the presence of CARB testing equipment and subsequently jumps to this code over here in the program that cuts engine power, reduces fuel flow, adjusts engine timing, and so forth?
to pass our pollution tests? Can you please explain this? No, they can't explain that, or at least not coherently, but nobody asked the questions. Why? Their broken culture did not allow, enable, encourage, or animate such thinking. Why? Keep listening.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.